So the first decision is a loss for the Biden administration on the question of the Clean Air Act and the ability to combat global warming. The Supreme Court, by a 6-3 vote, has ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have broad authority to try to set national energy policy by encouraging industries to switch to cleaner sources of power generation like wind and solar.
On Thursday, the Supreme Court wrapped what looks to be one of the worst years for our Constitution in living memory. From overturning a century of abortion rights, to allowing prayer in public schools, to gutting the EPA, more Americans than ever are now asking a tough question. Is the Supreme Court working against us? Yup. To understand the Supreme Court's baffling ruling stripping the EPA of the power to regulate greenhouse gases, we need to understand just how much Republicans hate federal agencies like the EPA, the IRS, the ATF, and others. The answer is a lot. For decades, Republicans have argued that America began its long slide into collapse the minute Congress started delegating its lawmaking authority to issue experts at agencies like the EPA. In Republicans' view, if Congress wants to regulate air pollution, clean water, tobacco, guns, or anything else, they should pass a law. That's great in theory, but in reality, Congress can barely pass the laws it's already talking about. If it's up to Congress to pass laws regulating food safety for every food sold in the country and water quality for every water body in the nation, well, good luck finding time for anything else. As it turns out, that's exactly the Republican plan. By sharply limiting federal agencies who regulate special areas that require constant expert attention, like food safety or workplace safety, Republicans want to pile up Congress's work desk. When Congress fails to get all that work done, Republicans like Ted Cruz will use that dysfunction to argue that our government is broken and ineffective. And the right-wing answer to that is always the same. Give the private sector more power to regulate itself. The Supreme Court's opinion argues that the EPA isn't actually empowered to protect the environment. If that sounds confusing, it's because Chief Justice John Roberts was essentially making up his argument as he wrote it. That's nothing new for Roberts, but when it comes to gutting the regulatory agencies that keep America running, it has sweeping consequences for our health, our safety, and our economy. A quick look at the legislation that created the EPA shows that members of Congress were clear that they were empowering the EPA to tackle the complex work of making regulations to improve our air, our water, and our climate. Then they went a step further with the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, which gave the EPA power to regulate, you guessed it, clean air and water. But what Congress wanted is irrelevant, Roberts argues, because in his mind, the mission of the EPA is unclear. That's right. Harvard-educated Chief Justice John Roberts can't seem to figure out that the mission of the Environmental Protection Agency is to protect the environment. Maybe a Supreme Court that struggles so much with reading comprehension shouldn't be in charge of interpreting all of our laws. But the EPA case is just one larger part of a Republican push to end federal agencies entirely. What the GOP really wants is to end what's called Chevron deference, which was originally brought into existence by the Supreme Court way back in the olden days of 1984. In that case, Chevron v. the Natural Resources Defense Council, the court said that judges should defer to government agencies in issues they're empowered by Congress to regulate. Practically, that meant courts trusted agencies like the EPA to do their jobs, unless the agency was acting far outside of congressional authority. Earlier this term, Justice Alito and others on the court's right indicated they were ready to overturn Chevron once and for all, hampering the government and handing a massive amount of power to unregulated private companies. Ending Chevron would be just one of the more staggering reversals from a Supreme Court that seems dead set on overturning every major precedent of the last 50 years. It would mean the end of federal agencies, and for Republicans, a major blow to our government's ability to function. That's great for them, but it would grind this country to a halt in ways that actively hurt the American people. Democrats must act now to restore the integrity of our court and protect the functioning of core government services. Whether they can actually find the political willpower to do that, that's a different story.